Hey y'all, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for another late night chat. This one is going to be jam-packed of full of interesting and just some good content that I think everyone, whether you are a parent, future parent, grandparent, teacher, caregiver, if you have children in your life in some form or fashion, I think tonight's chat is really going to be interesting and beneficial to you is, and again, too, whether there is a disability involved or not, I think this is going to be a good, powerful discussion. So, again, real quick, before we dive into tonight's topic, though, and before I allow our guest to introduce herself and channel and all about herself, I'm going to kind of briefly give a rundown of tonight's agenda and how and what you can expect from our discussion this evening. And so we're going to discuss ideas, tips, suggestions on how you can encourage independence in children. We want our kids to learn this very valuable, important life lesson because, research shows that as children gain independence, as they learn how to be independent, their self-esteem is elevated, they have a higher resilience. In their personalities and just throughout life, and they also just really gain a great attitude in their pride and their dignity and their I guess self accomplishments and such. And so I think that this is one of those, for me personally, with a 3 and a 5-year-old, one of my top 10 things that I value, and I really appreciate it when people help me reinforce independence in my children outside of the home as much as inside of the home. And so it's really nice when everyone is on board. And so hopefully by sharing that these tips, ideas, and suggestions, they may not be exactly what works for you because every child is different, right? And every parent is different. Everyone has a unique situation, but hopefully they will inspire you. Hopefully they are things that you can tweak in a way that will hopefully help you to foster independence in your children and thus promote happier overall family experience at home and in school. So tonight we're going to try to target the toddler age, maybe all the way up to, say, early school age, maybe. My daughter is going into kindergarten, so we are definitely in prep mode for that. So with all of that being said, that's kind of what I'm hoping to cover. We're going to, at the very end, close with how we handle when they're pushing back, when we're trying to teach them independence, when it's appropriate to clean up and when it's time to, throw the trash away, the simple tasks all the way to the complicated ones. If they're pushing back, they're being rebellious, how do we approach those situations when we're getting that pushback? So that's what's on the agenda tonight. But first, if you are a new viewer, hey, welcome to my channel. I so appreciate you joining me. I would love to have you part of my community here on Seeing Blind and Support. So please snag that subscribe button real quick. And if you don't mind notifications, especially to let you know when the live streams are starting, like right now, snag that notification bell as well and select all so that you do get them. Please do the same for my guest as well. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Carrie. And Carrie, please tell everybody who you are. I'm sure if most people know, but let everyone know how they can get a hold of you and learn more about you as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carrie Morales, and I am the creator of the Live Accessible YouTube channel. And on there, I do quite a variety of different content. Most of it is related to technology and how you can use that as a blind and visually impaired person. But I also do a lot of live streams and other content focused on just daily living with a visual impairment. And I am a mom of a 4-year-old who is visually impaired too. And I'm visually impaired, and my husband is totally blind. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I do on my channel. And if you want to learn more about it, you can just go to search Live Accessible or just go to youtube.com/live accessible. And you can also follow me on other social media like Instagram and Twitter and TikTok at Live Accessible. But I will say that I am definitely most present on Twitter these days. And there is
Same,
little Pablo.
same. We were just talking about how like we've kind of let Instagram go here lately, and it's one of those, I guess, as a blind mom, it's one of those visual things that I don't know. Instagram just isn't is easy and quick to post on as a mom,
Yes.
to as Twitter. I could just
The
quickly dictate a message
Exactly.
out.
In Twitter, you just need text. And like Instagram, you have
Yes,
to take a picture. Is it a good picture?
yes,
And you gotta get to
yes,
go describe the picture and alt text and everything. And then
yes.
I don't know, the app is you have to do everything on the app. And I'm more of a computer person when it comes to social media. But
Yeah,
yeah. But it's all good. I still do post occasionally. And
yeah.
I do use Instagram. There's one thing that I do use Instagram for. It's to connect and do DMs with other people. If
Yes,
you do want
same,
to get a hold of me, you can DM me, and I definitely keep up with those much better.
same. So I'm going to encourage everyone, go ahead, post anything, excuse me, in the live chat, and any questions anyone may have. And if you're watching this on the replay, don't hesitate to do the same there. Go ahead, drop a comment down below. I check all the comments, and if there's anything that I can't specifically address, I will certainly pitch it to Carrie, and we will certainly do our best to suggest whatever resource, a product, anything that we can rack our brains for to help solve your specific problem. So I'm going to give everyone just a real quick brief background while we're waiting for my subscribers to get their current notifications and to
Mhm.
get comfy, join us, and get the live chat going. So I have a 3 and a 5-year-old right now, and my daughter is 5, my son is 3, and my 5-year-old was my difficult child, and my 3-year-old was, the easy baby, but now he's 3, so enough said. But and so I'm really, really proud, I have to say, of my daughter. She is already reading at a crazy intelligent level, at least in my opinion, for being 5 years old. I mean, she's well above where she needs to be, and she's already doing math, beyond a first grade level as well. And so I and that's all part of that independence thing. And, my son, we're potty training right now. So that's a whole nother level of independence and learning self-care. And, and so I have had a lot on my plate this past year, especially in this category of independence. So I can't wait to really share and get down to the nitty gritty and share that with you. But so my kids right now, I can't say for sure whether they're visually impaired or not. They currently have good vision, but my disease is genetic. And when we did have had genetic testing on my daughter, we did the at birth, we had the cord blood tested, and so that all came back showing the same genetic markers. But it's one of those things where it's so genetics are so complicated when it comes to hereditary eye conditions and a lot of other disabilities that are congenital are this kind of the same boat. Sometimes it's just a guessing game and you never really know if it's going to present or not, if they're going to develop the disease or not. So it's a waiting game for us at this point. It's on my radar and I'm ready, I'm prepped to prepare them for that life if need be, or if not, we're just smooth sailing as any other family would be at this point. So, Carrie, I so appreciate having your perspective tonight, being, you yourself visually impaired, as well as your son and your husband as well. So,
Mhm.
I think
What
that really can change a lot of family dynamics.
Definitely. And I know that there's are a lot of congenital eye conditions like yours where you never know and it could develop much later in life.
Mm-hmm.
But in our case, I have something called aniridia, which is the underdevelopment of the iris and the lack or partial lack of it. And so, at least for aniridia, it's evident basically at birth.
Mm-hmm.
So the doctors could, like, when they first saw little Pablo, they had the suspicion, and then he had to go to a ophthalmologist right away to
Mm-hmm.
confirm that
Oh, I see.
opinion. So
Yeah.
so in our case, it was definitely we knew right away, and in a way that's I mean, it's definitely difficult, but in a way, it also just gives you that peace of mind. Okay, so I know which path to take.
Yeah.
So yeah, so since he was little, we've definitely been working with him in a lot of different ways to just have him have those skills that he needs to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. So I am going to kind of start something, go ahead, get into tonight's topic and discussion, and I'm going to check the chat. It is starting to kind of, it looks like I'm seeing a few posts here in the live chat. So, real quick, guys, I want to throw out some disclaimers because I think, some people may, with independent, some people I think can kind of get the wrong impression, and it's like one of those things where, oh, that parent's being way too hard on their little one, or
Mm,
expecting way too much from their little one. So definitely want everyone to realize, we're speaking about age appropriate tasks. We want them to be developmentally appropriate for your child. We're not I don't want to encourage anyone to do anything just because it's my children are ready at X age or point. Doesn't mean that every child is. So definitely use your best judgment as a parent. Take it baby steps if you need to, but just having this on your radar is already a great start. Um, but I just want to throw that out there that it's definitely something important that we all want to encourage and foster, but at the same time, make sure you're still being realistic in your expectations and not setting your little one up for failure at the same time.
mm.
I'm going to check and see who's in the chat real quick. And then, Carrie, if you want to maybe start out with one of the first things, what was like maybe one of the first things when your son was, you know, learning to become more mobile or just begin to explore his environment? What's one of those very first things that you encouraged him that would fall under the category of being independent?
Well, first, I do want to mention that one of the struggles that me and my husband both had, especially when little Pablo was little, is the expectation of milestones. And I think that in a lot of ways, a lot of first time parents go through the same things, but statistically, with visually impaired and blind children, they tend to actually hit their milestones a little bit later in life. And so
Mm,
the one of the first things that we had to come to terms with, I guess, is throw away the sheet that says
hmm. Yes.
your child
Yes.
should be doing this X, Y, and Z at 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and it's kind of they are going to learn when they're going to learn, and you shouldn't worry so much about um those milestones. I mean, yes, those are things that your doctor and people in the medical field can help you with, but at the same time, don't just focus and agonize over those things, definitely, because I can say, like, from my experience, I was thinking, oh, he is not doing this, he's not crawling, like, at the same
Yeah.
time as his other peers, or he's not walking at the same time. And a lot of it is, you I think, when you have the expectation, and it's stressing you out, your child is going to feel that. They might not know
Yes.
exactly or understand exactly what's going on, but they're going to have that same kind of stress as well. And
Mhm.
that actually can hinder them from achieving what your expectation is. So, like for little Pablo, in his case, I would try like over and over again to try to make him and like, come on, encourage him to do something like walking by himself without what do you call it? When you're holding something, I can't remember the term right now. Tell me, Cindy, when
Oh,
you're walking and holding
just
something.
like those little, like, just the walkers, right? I mean,
N
isn't it
no,
just
there's a term for it, I can't remember, but you're not walking independently, like, just on your 2 feet, but, like,
yeah, I know what you're
holding on
talking about
to
too.
to the
We
to
always
the
called it their
something, yeah.
little, like, it was like, yeah.
Like, to a sofa or to a wall, you're holding on to that, but anyway,
Yeah.
so I would kind of push him
Mhm.
to, like, let go, and I think that he did feel that kind of stress and that, like,
Yes.
that I was pushing too hard, and so
Yes.
he would be resistant to that instead
Mhm.
of, more gentle encouragement and helping
Mhm.
him feel confident in what he can do, which is what
Yes.
I think is important. You have to instill that, like, confidence in what they are able to do before they can move on to something new.
Very good point. Yeah, I totally can relate to that. My daughter, she did not actually speak words until she was 2+ years old. And
Mhm.
so, we were at like 18 months. Everyone was like, "Oh, how many words can she speak?" And I'm like, "Well, zero." She can say mama, and that's
Oh, yeah.
everything else. It was a grunt or a point and
Mhm.
I remember feeling that just use your words or let's work on some words. And, you know, they will let you know when if they are not ready for a specific task or developmental milestone or if they're not ready, pushing it is not doing them any favors because really they will get the most satisfaction when they get there on their own and when they get there in their own time. And so letting sometimes that's the hardest thing for us parents to is to step back from our
Mhm.
personal expectations and just meeting them where they're at and finding something
Yes.
else that they can
Yes.
excel in and have that positive experience that really boosts their self-esteem. And that
Mhm.
because that's part of the whole process, when they become independent and they have those positive moments, that's really what ripples into all their other experiences and then to their entire life development is, when they become more independent and they learn what that feels like, the overall studies
Mhm.
show that they have a higher self-esteem throughout life. And so setting them up for success and identifying where those areas are that they are able to achieve those successes is key, I think, for really fostering and gaining that momentum in encouraging independence.
Absolutely, and actually, little Pablo had a similar experience with, learning words and
Hmm.
speech, and we actually had him go through speech therapy, and
Same.
during the speech therapy, I honestly didn't see that much improvement, and so I'm,
Me
like, sitting
either.
there and I am thinking, "Well, what is this going to accomplish?" But, actually, the more sessions that we did, what actually happened, instead of more of the speech therapist helping my son learn how to speak, what I learned actually is that she was teaching me how to
Mm,
teach him and how
exactly.
to encourage speech from him, but it would be more coming from me because she'd come for like what, 30 minutes, an hour for like a
Exactly.
week.
Yeah. For, yeah, once a week, if that. Hmm.
Exactly, so what I was learning is like, oh, so that's how I can encourage him and like,
Right.
motivate him to open up and to talk. And, and a lot of it too is patience. And
Yes.
we as parents, we have like this thing, okay, we're teaching them, we want to see the results. And
Yes.
the thing is that the results are going to come, and you just have to be patient and persistent and just continue doing something over and over again until you do see those results, and just don't try to pry those results out,
Yes.
you know?
And that, you brought up patience, and that was actually one of my big bullet points that I wanted to touch on tonight too, because in sort of a different way, patience is so key because as parents, we all time is so precious, right? And
Mm.
sometimes it can be so difficult to find patients and to let them take 5 hours to figure out
Mhm.
how to take their shirt off or put it on. And
Oh.
and and so we'll just like jump in there and we'll want to just do all the because it's so much easier and faster if we just do everything for them, right? And
Absolutely.
and it is so difficult to step back as a parent, find that patience, allot enough time. If you're going to be leaving somewhere at 3, you better start getting ready at 1.
At 12
and
maybe?
or yeah, and exactly, but finding that patience to step back and allow them to figure it out on their own, to figure out what the consequences are if they run out the door without their
Mhm.
jacket, or
Well,
to step back and to really allow them to discover things in their own time and
yes.
accomplish those tasks in their own time and way instead of jumping in there every time and doing it for them.
Sometimes, you have to do that because, you're very short on time, but when you can, when it's in your power to orchestrate it so that you do have that
Hmm.
extra time, sometimes people just need, I mean, everybody just needs to learn the hard way. They need to struggle to achieve something. And, like my son, just putting on his shoes, it'll take
Hmm.
him a long time, like, especially in the beginning. It would take him so long to figure out, like, you
Yes.
have to pull out the tie, like, and hold it up so that when you put your foot in there, it doesn't go sliding back in, and then your foot doesn't fit in there, and all these little
Hmm.
steps. And the thing is that you have to step back and just give them pointers. Oh, yes,
Hmm.
teach them, but
Yes.
let them do it themselves. Let
Yes.
them struggle with it a
Yeah.
little bit. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the best way. I mean, just like us, our
I lost you. Are you there, Cindy? I don't know if that's my internet or yours. Okay. I'm not sure what happened to Cindy, guys. Um, okay. I do want to say while we're waiting for Cindy, there's Eric, and he says hello, hello, Eric, and Ryan. He says hi. And Ryan also says tie shoes. Oh, this is a good one. Ryan Davies asks, how to teach my 9-year-old how to tie their shoes. Mackenzie has aniridia as well and one okay eye with vision. And we'll get back to your question, but I'm going to read your other comment. Ryan says, I'm scared when they
Oh,
go back to
am
school.
I
Oh, there
back?
you go. Hey,
Yay! I am so
yay.
sorry about that, y'all. Oh my goodness.
Were you
Okay,
hearing me talk?
I am. I am.
No, before when you were gone, did you hear
Yes,
what I said? Okay, okay, good. Yeah,
I think I
so
did.
Ryan is asking how to teach my 9-year-old how to tie their shoes. Mackenzie has aniridia as well and one okay eye with vision. And I don't know if you wanna go ahead and answer this question now. So I was just reading
Yeah.
comments while you were
I am so glad you did. Yeah, because that was actually the next thing I was going to transition to real quick.
Okay.
So when it comes to the more complicated tasks such as tying shoes, potty training, I mean, some of the more complicated tasks, I like to incorporate songs, videos, things that make it fun, that it's like someone else is introducing in a different way, because sometimes I think even kids at age 9, 10, they're still just, their brain is still trying to figure out their best way to learn. You have some
Mhm.
auditory learners, you have visual learners, you have, learners that have to, see it to really, get it to stick. And so, their brains are still developing at that age, guys. So honestly, I would explore every possible approach, from YouTube videos to cartoons to just having a song that so my background is in music therapy. And one of the things that I would always encourage parents to do is take like Mary Had a Little Lamb, or take Simon Says, or take any of these like just chance fun songs or anything, and then figure out the words, that in your own words, how you would describe each little action, put it into a fun song that helps them follow the sequence, because tying your shoe is more of a sequence of movements that they have to follow to produce the knot, right? And so first you want to, teach them how to kind of tie the beginning knot, and how the wording that you would use is the wording you would want to try to incorporate into a fun song that would be an easy way for them to remember each sequence of the tasks. And that usually helps it make it more fun, less stressful, and it's a more creative approach that helps them
Mhm.
remember the process and sequence a little bit better. But if they're a visual learner, try YouTubing kids, the YT kids. There's all kinds of videos like that that is super fun, creative, animated, that they can view if they have some functional vision, or, maybe a visual disability is not the disability that you all have in your household. If you're watching this on the replay, who knows what disability anyone's dealing with, but you definitely want to try to present it in as many fun, positive ways as possible. And just like we said earlier, be patient. Eventually, it will click.
Mhm.
And it'll click when they accomplish it on their own, not just you showing it over and over and over and over.
And I do wanna add, a little bit more too, like, the what Cindy says is such great ideas, um, but you can also do it in art, just learning how to tie that knot. You
Mm-hmm.
can make bows, you can make, other kinds of things, make something that she likes,
Yeah.
and so she
Yeah.
could practice it over and over, even though it's not, like, necessarily on her shoe, it's still going through that motion, and then you can even incorporate like a game into it or a song into that. But practicing though that would be good too. And they even have those little Montessori type like ties, and they have like the two strings, and then you can practice tying on there if you want to go that route too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's find something that she likes and that she enjoys, and try to
Yes.
incorporate that into the learning experience. And if it depending on the vision too, you could do this completely by touch as well, and find a way to just practice doing that. Um, w- you know, Still making a game of it, but with your eyes closed, or with her just doing it non-visually.
Yes. I agree. I agree. I think that those are all excellent points. Hopefully that helps you in some way, to give you some ideas and resources to check out. So yeah, if anyone else has any other questions or anything like that, feel free, put them in the live chat. So real and let me know. I'm terrible, Carrie, as far as keeping up with the chat and everyone's questions. So if I miss something, please let me know. But I do want to hi Ryan, hi Eric, everybody that's in the chat right now. I really appreciate y'all.
There's also Divided by Sight. Is that
Oh yeah,
Lauren?
hey
Yep.
Lauren, yeah.
Hello.
Let's
So
see.
Ryan also has another comment here.
Yeah.
Says, "I'm scared when they go back to school. My daughter's vision has decreased and has one okay eye with some vision, and wants the best way for a 9-year-old to try to socialize. Is it just trial and error?"
Ooh, this is a big one because I think, 9, 10, 11, those kind of like tween years is when they really start to become more socially aware of their differences and that pressure of, okay, I don't quite fit in that box of as everyone else, especially if they're being mainstreamed or going to a public school. I feel like yeah, 9, 10 years old, that's when, for me, looking back at my childhood, when um, I did start to, clue into those things. So I think socialization is one of those things where there's not much that you can control in the school, except teaching them how to communicate correctly and efficiently, how to advocate for themselves and to not be ashamed of whatever condition they have, and how, sometimes learning how to communicate to your friends is completely
Mhm.
different in how you communicate to your loved ones or your teachers or other adults in your
Yes,
life.
absolutely.
And so sometimes a lot of that is something they have to figure out on their own. And so just being there, support system, being there to
Mhm.
encourage them, help them, just being present when they need you. But honestly, there's nothing that you can really do to get them through that on their own,
I
except I would encourage doing your best, whether it's in your local community or on social media, but connecting them with their other peer ages that do have visual impairments that can also help normalize their situation. It doesn't have to be the same visual acuity, it doesn't have to be the same disease or anything like that. They don't have to be, completely apples to apples, but having, that community of people that helps normalize them also gives them that confidence so that when they do go to school and they're with other peers that may not be able to relate to them on that level, they still have that confidence to stand up for themselves or to advocate for themselves or to say, hey, dude, that was inappropriate. Actually, if you just ask me why I can't see, I'll be glad to tell you, kind of thing.
I would also do my best as a parent, and this is something that I struggled with when I was young and I was visually impaired, to build a connection with your child, where they can trust you and confide in you.
Right.
Because at least when I was younger, I didn't necessarily feel that way with my parents. And I think that if my cousin, on the other hand, she was able to tell her mom, like, this happened and that happened, and, like, my friend said this, and they were able to really talk through those situations. Okay,
Yeah.
this happened. What do you think, you learned from this? And because, as a 9-year-old, you're probably not going to think about those things. You're just going to feel, and you're just going to
Exactly.
be upset, and you're not going to learn from those. So, like, reflecting on what can you do next time, and then you can go through different scenarios. Okay, if your friend says this, or if somebody does say this, like, actually practice saying that out loud, like your response, I think, is helpful.
Yes, I totally agree with that. I think, yeah, practicing modeling what behavior, and that's why I always encourage parents, like when there's an IEP meeting, when there is any kind of school event or any kind, or say there is any kind of issue that you have with a teacher that may not be meeting the accommodation goals, what have you. If there's, any time that you need to step in and advocate for your student, I always encourage parents to let them be present, let them witness what it takes, what language you use, the appropriate ways that um, you go through advocating for them in the school system. And as well, if it's a social situation, if a peer is being inappropriate and it's taking, adults to get in on the scene to help moderate, I always encourage parents to not disclude their child, and let them be as part of that situation and problem solving and resolution
Mhm.
as possible, because that's how they learn. That's how they're going to learn to fight those battles
Mhm.
when they're on their own. And it starts as early as these ages, guys. You got to think of it as little seeds that you're planting now, at like a ripple effect. It's going to be memories that they're going to pull on for years to
Mhm.
come, that's going to help guide them through situations when they may not have you in their back pocket, fighting for them and advocating for them in difficult moments at that point in time.
Yes, they're going
So,
to remember the time what you did, and they're going
exactly.
to replicate that, and I think it's so important, like, when you are going through this, talk to them through it. I mean, of course, probably not during a meeting and things like that, but afterwards. Like,
Right.
explain what your thought process was and why you did this and why you said that, so that they can understand your reasoning behind what you're doing, and that way that also creates more independence when they do have to advocate for themselves.
Totally, totally agree. Yeah. All right, let's check in. Do we have any other questions? And I'm sorry, guys, if my head is down, it's only because I am like zooming in real big on my iPad. Sometimes it's kind of awkward on the screen, I feel like, but
Yeah, Laura
okay.
says, "What a great discussion." And "Age is just a number" by Barbara says,
Oh,
"Hi, Cindy."
hey, Barbara Jean. Welcome, welcome. Barbara Jean, girl, you've raised little ones. I'm sure you've got some encouragements and words of wisdom for getting them on their own, and encouraging independence. So I want to say, guys, it also starts as simple as when they are learning how to crawl, and
Mhm,
instead of pushing the toy straight to them, encouraging them to explore their environment and finding it themselves.
mhm,
Simple tasks like that, guys, is that can be where it starts, where it begins. Teaching your toddlers the importance of throwing away their own trash and not doing it for them every single time.
mhm,
Putting their, so right now, my son is 3. He's able to pick up his plate from the table
mhm,
and dump it into the sink. Dude, you
mhm.
you have 2 feet. Hey, help mommy out. This is something you can do, and it's like my daughter, same thing. She has certain chores now that we encourage her to do. It's not anything we keep a tally on. We certainly have positive reinforcements, but if they forget or we forget to hold them accountable, there's no negative punishment or anything like that. But we do try to let them experience consequences when we can. And I think that's another big way that helps them learn independence, because part of being independent is problem solving. It's figuring out, how to do things yourself, and when you don't do them, what's the result? And
Mhm,
for example, okay, if I'm not going to put my toys up and next thing you know I can't find the toys I want to play with tomorrow, the next day, well now, okay, let me help you understand. That's why it's important that when I say it's cleanup,
mhm.
this is why cleanup is important.
Yes,
And
they
and
definitely want to know that why. Because if you just tell them
exactly.
to do
Yes.
something, a lot of the time they're just like, "Okay, well, she told my mom told me to do that," but, like, they unless they know the reason,
Mm-hmm.
It's so difficult to actually get them to do that.
Yes. Yes. I think this brings me to another point, just explaining why brings up communication. I think
Mhm.
communication is every bit, especially when, in our situation, we are the ones with a disability. And as a blind mom, like I can't tell when if my
Mhm.
kids go off the front porch, they're out of my sight.
Yeah.
And so I have to go above and beyond making sure I communicate my expectations for safety reasons. Why? When I call your name, is it important that you not play hide and seek with mommy when we're outside?
Mhm.
There are appropriate times for that game, and we have to communicate that. But when I call your name, I need you to say, right
Mm.
here, mommy. You're
Yeah.
5 years old. You can respond to me, and you should be able to understand why mommy needs you to do that. And it is a safety issue. And so
Yes.
that is something, too, that I think that for the parents that are disabled, as well as, if it's the child disabled, knowing the extra steps for communication and the expectations need to be set, and they need to be set consistently so that everyone's on the same page. There's no slacking, there's no confusion, and everyone understands those whys, like you say, and
Mm.
and everyone is understanding of what it takes to maintain safety, and that way we don't feel like we have to be the helicopter parent.
Mm.
We
Mhm.
have our safety protocols in place. They know what they need to do when I call their name or what have you. So
Yes,
communication is huge.
and the thing is that if you do have younger children, I would encourage you to do that as soon as possible. Start
Yes.
them off young
Yes.
and really work with that because, it definitely takes time and it definitely takes a lot of practice for both sides, for you as a parent and for them as a child, because
Yes.
they have their brain all over the place. They wanna go do this and that and do everything and just explore the world, and then it takes a lot of self-control that they have to learn as they grow up,
Yes.
and self-discipline to think about, "Yes, I do need to answer when mom like, I have to answer right away, or else, like, it's a safety issues. Mom's going to definitely be like, 'Oh my gosh, something happened if I don't answer.'" And so I think it's so important to really practice that, even if they're not like, even if your child is already, older, if you can just keep practicing that and be persistent and be, y really, hone in on that
Hmm.
every single time instead of just letting things slide, and just letting things
Yes.
go. And I'm not saying to give them all these punishments when they don't. No, I'm just saying, like,
Right.
really talk through that each and every time that it doesn't happen.
Right.
And also, if it does happen, give them some positive affirmation. "Oh, thank you." Like with little Pablo when he's outside and he's playing in the backyard, and I call him, "Pablo, where are you?" And he says, "Here, I'm here." I say, "Okay, thank you. Thank you for telling me." I think
Hmm.
that's so important because, for them, okay, so I know that this is something that what I should be doing.
Right. And the same goes for older kids. Like if you have the
Mhm.
expectation of like, okay, hey, I'm going to be standing by the flagpole, whether it's you or them or whoever, wherever you set the communication and expectation, it doesn't matter what age it is, having that part of your family processes to handle school pickup, to handle events, vacations, what have you, getting practicing those things starting at the very beginning when they first learn to crawl or walk, or just setting those family processes up is huge. And and I think it just for much as for you as for us, us as parents as well as for the kids, because it's something that we ourselves as parents have to get used to communicating, especially if you're a new parent out of the gate and you've got a 2-year old, you don't, or 3-year old, and you haven't had your next one yet. You're still kind of figuring things out as they become more exploratory, more mobile. These are things that the earlier you get used to, the better, because like we said earlier, they will model you and your communication styles, and your the effort that you
Yes.
put into communicating is going to be the effort that they will be putting into
Mm.
it eventually. Now, teen years, whole other story, right? But but
I'm not there yet, thank you.
I know, me either, but I've had so many nieces and nephews that I'm like, oh my God, I'm terrified already. So that reminds me, actually, I read a very interesting issue that came up very recently on one of the Facebook groups for, I think, I can't remember if it was like one of the blind parenting Facebook groups, but a mom she was totally blind. She had like a 10-year-old and like an 8-year-old or something, and their
Mm.
schools had uniforms. And of course, the kids did not want to wear their uniforms. And so
Mm.
she would double check. She would make sure that the children had on their uniforms and blah, blah, blah. And well, the 10-year-old put the uniform on, then snuck back into her room, put on the clothes that she wanted to wear.
Mm.
And the mom was just, of course, she's like, hey, I always triple check before they run out for the bus, or, before we uh, get to school, always triple check. But she said the youngest one actually kind of ratted the older one out. But she, as a mom, felt just so frustrated because the older one was starting to really kind of take advantage of the fact that mom can't see. I'm going to be able to get away with this. And so she was being rebellious. She was pushing back, and so this is kind of one of those things where a lot of people in the thread in the comments was like, well, dude, then let her experience those consequences. Let her go to
Mhm.
school and get and feel that, you know, pressure from the peers and from their school, and see what the consequences are, because every
Yes.
parent, I mean, whether there's a disability in the family dynamics or not, every parent has had that situation where the kids have pushed and pushed the boundary, and they just need to know what is going to happen if I don't do
Absolutely.
this. And
Absolutely.
I think letting that happen is okay.
And yes, and if it's I mean, if they're going to get run over by a car or something,
Right.
absolutely
Oh,
not.
yeah.
But if
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
going to be something where it's a consequence that isn't gonna hurt them that much, and, that they're gonna learn from it, then
Mhm.
absolutely, I would definitely agree with that. And one thing, though, that I will say is what from the perspective of a parent, what's helpful is to not think of it as the child is against you. I mean, sometimes
Mm.
when they are rebelling, you're just like, "Oh my gosh, like, why are you doing this to me?" That you
Yeah.
feel that in your heart. You're, like, so frustrated, and it
Mhm.
makes you angry. But at the same time, you have to remember that they are children. They're learning their boundaries, they're learning their limits, and it's not always about you. It's not about
Right.
you as a parent. It's about them going through life and going through these challenges, and they have to work through all of these emotions, all of these thoughts. And so as a parent, calm down, I would say. Like, I tell that to myself all the time, like,
Yeah.
and make things about them learning instead of thinking of it as, like, they're doing something against you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, especially for those of us parents with disabilities, that's kind
Mhm.
of one of those bitter pills to swallow when our kids start to kind of really
Yes.
use our limitations to their advantage to push boundaries and to
Mhm.
um figure out what they can get away with and such. And, I mean, and again, I think it's just part of the natural process of them
Yes.
learning their independence. It, and it's like you can feel frustrated that, like, because it does hit home. It strikes a
Mhm.
nerve when
It
it's
does.
because of our disability that they are getting away with this. Oh my God, does that not light your butt on
Mm.
fire? But let me tell you, it is so hard. And I totally get that frustration. And the most difficult part, though, is really on us to let
Mhm.
that go and realize, hey, this is a important life lesson that sometimes they just have to learn on their own. If they're going to be independent, they have to go out on that limb on their own and figure out what it feels like to fall from that tree branch. And
Mhm.
because we're not going to be able to put a bubble around them their whole life. And that is the way it is at 2 years old to 18, 19, 20, and beyond, I would think. I think that
Absolutely.
it's one of those things where it doesn't matter really how old they are. All parents, I think, want to keep their kids in a bubble,
Mm.
happy, healthy, and safe and stuff. But unfortunately, some life lessons takes
You really
kicking them
have
in
to
the butt. Yeah,
experience it. You really do.
yes, you do. You
I
do.
mean, just think about you when you were a child. I mean, I'm
Right.
sure that there were instances that you did the same, something similar. And just remember that each of us are a little human that we're learning. I mean, we were a little human. We're probably not now, but
Yeah.
but I mean, we went through all of that and they have to as well.
Right. Right. So, if there's any specific questions anybody has related to and it's trying to teach your child independence, whether they are visually impaired or not. I've seen a lot of parents, especially with blind children, ask questions. How do I teach them independence when it comes to their environment and exploring their environment when they're not even trying to explore their environment because they can't see? And from there's so many different things that you can approach so many all these situations with, and it's one of those things where it will probably take your all's questions to kind of help us prompt any potential suggestions and ideas that will help you specifically, because otherwise we're kind of just talking in the dark here, if you will. But
Mhm.
I'm super curious, Carrie, what do you do when little Pablo it's just like, no, mom. No, I am not going to clean my room up, or I am not going to throw the trash away, or no, I'm not going to go potty because it's just a lot easier to just do it in my pants so I can keep playing, or whatever. you know, input
Mhm.
situation and scenario. I mean, every parent hits that experience, with their little ones where
Absolutely.
they're just not on the same page. So, how do you handle those situations?
Honestly, the first thing I always have to do is take a really deep breath.
Amen.
As we
Amen.
I'm just gonna tell you the truth now. I have to really okay, and then once
Uh-huh.
I am calm, then I can approach the situation.
Right.
And, we will sit what I usually do for the most part is we will sit down and we'll both calm down
Mhm.
and we'll talk about it and talk about why he's got to go pee because or to the bathroom because it's been a really long time and all of these things or why he has to clean up or what
Mhm.
is the reason behind it and like again it's that I think a lot of it is that communication and sometimes what I've learned is also that sometimes there's something going on in his head. Something is going on that he might not even be thinking about, something related to what you asked him to do. But it could be something's bothering him, could be that he's worried about something. There's other external things that could be happening
Mm.
at the same time, which is
Mhm.
why they don't want to do something. Like, for example, like I can't remember the specifics, but little Pablo was playing with something, and I asked him, "Okay, it's time to go to the bathroom," because I mean, as a mom, I know that he has to go pee. Like, you can tell by the
Yes.
movement, by all the
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and
The
how long
sounds
it's
they're
been.
making.
Oh
Yep.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
all that, and I'm like, and the thing is that after he didn't want to go, of course, and so we had to just sit down and talk about it. And what I found out in that instance is he was fearful that he wasn't going to be able to continue playing after.
Yes.
And I mean, it could be something so simple as that.
Yeah.
And if you just kind of blow up, then you're not really addressing the concern. And so I think, again, just approaching it from, a composition and trying to understand where they're coming from and what they're thinking can really help.
Yeah. I think it's so easy for us parents to just say, just do it because I say so.
Yeah.
Just do it because I'm telling you to, and this is what you need to do. And it's so easy to lose our patience and
Mhm.
forget that
And
we get caught up in our own rationale and our own
exactly.
reasoning, and we forget to check in with them to
Yes.
figure out, okay, well, what is your issue against this?
Yes.
Why do you not
Mm.
want to put your shoes on and to go play? Do you not understand that you can get an owie on your foot if you don't put
Mhm.
your shoes on? And talk to them. And I think
Yes.
that's all part of the communication skills that I think is so it's so easy
And
to slack off
And
on
I'm
and
not going to
not.
lie. I mean, I'm sure we have all been in that position where just like, just do it because I said so.
Yes, I know, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I don't want to make people think that, we're perfect and that
Oh,
we
yeah,
do this
right,
every
right,
time. It's our goal. It's always our goal. It's our what we wish to aspire to. and
right,
and so that's the thing. I think also as parents we need to have that practice. And the thing is that this is still my first child, and he's only 4, so I've only had 4 years compared to a lot of other people who have multiple children who are older. And I think that it just really takes practice on both sides.
right. I love it. Barbara Jean here says, making them, responsible for their
Hmm.
actions. I
Yes.
think is another huge thing. Accountability is a powerful tool, and when they understand the consequences and we let them discover that and they're held accountable, and it's
Hmm.
not just us doing it. It's like, okay, you see your school, this is the school rule, it's not
Yes.
mama's rule, but I am here to help you follow it, and if you're going to
Hmm.
fight me on it, then you get to discover what happens, and then they have to fulfill the punishment, or whatever the the consequence is for that action. But I think, teaching them responsibility starts with learning when we play the cleanup song. And
Hmm.
I have a video where I show like all the different ways that I use Alexa as my parent assistant, and how I will give them 5-minute reminders like, hey, clean up in 5 minutes. And you can set a 5-minute timer to or alarm to go off with a song. So you can
Hmm.
program it to actually play the cleanup song in 10 minutes, and you give them, gentle reminders,
Yeah.
to give them a heads up, and so they don't feel blindsided or surprised or anything. But I've got a video
Hmm.
on how I go over that, because using Alexa is also a great tool that takes some of that pressure of mommy always in like being the cop. mommy's
Mhm.
always the disciplinarian, or mommy's always the, or daddy, or both a parent, whoever, whatever the family dynamics are. It's nice when I can say, well, but Alexa says it's time, not mommy.
Mhm.
Oh, the timer's
Yes.
going off. I'm not the one
Yes.
saying it's time. You hear it, going off. And so sometimes, letting them know that, and teaching them responsibility in fun ways, that it's like that. They're not surprised, but at early ages, sometimes sowing those seeds early, the ripple effects, it's one of those things where you, you putting forth a higher investment now with,
Mm.
letting go of your frustration, taking a deep breath, exercising patience. I am really praying because I only have a 3 and 5-year-old. I'm really, really praying, Carrie, that the payoff
Mm.
will be
Mhm.
significant in the long term.
Yes.
If
And
anyone has older kids, maybe you could tell us in the chat below.
give us some hope, please.
Like, yeah, are we on to something here or what?
But I mean, I definitely agree, and I think it's so important, those little reminders, those very gentle reminders, "Okay, Alexa's going to beep soon, just remember."
Right.
And the thing is, if you do that, without a third party, like Alexa or your
Mm-hmm.
phone timer,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. It's
Right.
like there's like this kind of disbelief, like, "Mommy, but it hasn't been." And I mean,
Right.
it's even there with Alexa. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. But I think the routine really helps, and just them knowing the expectation, but also knowing what is going to happen if they don't do something. So
Yes.
whatever appropriate consequence you attach to that, responsibility, they
Mm-hmm.
should know that in advance, and they
Yes.
should be aware of that so they can walk through that in their mind, and even with you afterwards, when they balk at, like, "Okay, but I don't want to, like, I don't like that consequence." Well, did talk about this, and
Mm-hmm.
because you chose not to do X, Y, or Z, well, this is what's going to happen. And I
Right.
think that just them knowing and understanding that beforehand could
Mm-hmm.
really help them to decide on their own to do, whatever it is that you want them to do.
Right. Right. I I love one of my neighbors. She actually does not use the word, punishments or anything. She uses the word consequences. That
Mhm.
is an act of, that's one of the words they use in their communication. Okay, son, this was the choice you made. We have
Mhm.
consequences now. And one of
Mhm.
the hardest things that I was really surprised at this, being a parent, and as my kids have continued, to get older, and is how difficult it is sticking to your guns and
Mhm.
staying consistent with your consequences, and not, because they'll beg and they'll plead and they'll
Mommy,
cry
please.
and do everything in the book to manipulate. Oh my goodness. I mean, they can learn to be masters of manipulators, and that, I think, understanding, because it's tricky. They'll play on your
Oh,
heartstrings,
yes.
right?
Oh, yes.
When they are pulling out all the stops. They're master manipulators, and it's really difficult as a parent to discern. Okay, when are they really heartbroken and legitimate, or when they're just really trying to pull one over on you. It's a very fine line to walk, and I think, when
Yes.
we're very close to the situation, just like anything in life, when you are close to it, it's very difficult to see it with
Mhm.
clear eyes, and to, with clarity. And with our kids, man, it's so hard to stick to your guns and to keep,
Mhm.
consistent, and listen to them just wail, in
Yes.
their room. And I'm like,
Yes.
if you're going to continue to whine, that's okay. But you're going to do it in the
Mhm.
other room, because none of us want to hear it. You
Yes.
understand what the consequences are,
Absolutely.
and if you're going to be upset about it, that's okay. Be upset.
Mhm.
It's an important part of the process, but you need to be upset in your room, because I am not going to hear you scream and fuss and plead at me for the
Mhm.
next 2 hours trying to get me to go back on my word.
And the thing is, sometimes when you do go back on your word and you just kind of let them manipulate you, I think
Mm-hmm.
one of the worst feelings is when they just flip. They're like crying their eyes out, they're bleeding,
Mm-hmm.
they're like so brokenhearted. And then you're like, okay, okay, fine, fine, fine. And then they're like, oh, bright and shiny. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I should not have just said that. Oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, it's just the alligator tears and stuff. It's just, oh my gosh. I mean, they really know how to work it. And I'm like,
mm,
if you put this much
mm.
effort into just doing the
All that
task,
time that you
or
spent.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's like they will put more energy and time and effort into being stubborn and just proving that they don't have to do it, or that they
Yeah.
can get away with it. And it's like I'm just like, wow, can I have just part of that energy just to keep fighting you on it? I mean, it's just, so I
I
think
think they take it from us, so that's
oh,
why they
yeah, they
have it.
do. They do. I do. I mean, it's so funny. My husband and I, we joke all the time that, prior to kids, we did not have gray hair, but believe it or not. And it's so funny because I joke all the time. I'm like, well, honey, I can't see your gray hair, so you're still, just as young and handsome to me as you were before kids, like, I mean, but, and so I'm just like, if I have any gray hair, y'all just don't tell me.
I'd rather
I'm gonna
not
be,
know.
yeah, I'm just gonna be blissfully unaware. But I think, kids are really, really good at pushing those boundaries, and what you let them get away with, they will. It's
Mhm.
like that old saying. Have you heard that saying where, like, if you give an inch, they will take a mile?
Yes, absolutely. I
So
cannot agree with
freaking
that.
true, guys. So true. And I mean,
And the
goodness,
problem is once you give that mile, it's really hard to go back on that.
to get it back. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
I mean, when they will hold that one
Mm.
time over your head for years to come. I mean, it's like, okay, I've tried to teach you how many things, and that's the one thing that you're going to remember. You know, so the one time that I let you have extra candy before
Mhm.
bed or something, like,
Yes.
however big or small it is, but I yeah, I'm so. It is such an interesting journey so far, guys. So, who all's in the chat? I want everyone to say hi. Tell us where you're at with kids. Are you raising them? Have you already raised them? Are you future parent? Do you have any questions? Let's see what's going on because it looks like
Yeah,
we've got some activity. What do you
yeah.
see, Carrie?
While we're waiting for people to answer that, I do want to touch on Ryan's comment here. Thank you. And from what you said, this is a good time to ask, what if the school district isn't as eager at making enough effort to give her, I think that's Mackenzie, all the accommodations. My school district seems lax.
Well, so this is a fight that I myself am extremely familiar with. I was mainstreamed. I did not. I participated in the School for the Blind very briefly for some short course things through the summer times, but we had to constantly fight. The law is on your side here, guys, and that's where, unfortunately, it doesn't matter what minority you are. My husband and I were just talking about this the other day. He's getting his doctorate degree right now, and just from all the research, I mean, it can be so discouraging that people just don't do the right thing, or that teachers unfortunately just aren't given enough time to adequately prepare for all the accommodations for all their students that have IEPs, which is individualized educational plans. And when they need special accommodations, some teachers, if they can get away with not providing it, if they can justify it in their head because they're stressed out, they're overworked, they don't have enough hours in the day to do it, they don't have any help or support from their office staff or what have you, if they can get away, they're not going to do it. And so, unfortunately, squeaky wheels get the most attention here, guys. And I think that is so true with government, with school systems, with everything. When it comes to advocating for your rights and for what you need to succeed, you have to fight. And if they get slack, you have to hold them accountable. And so, by reminding them that, hey, by law, you are required
Mhm.
to do this. And if you don't do this, I will be pursuing action. I will be doing what I need to do to make sure my child is learning. It has every opportunity to learn as the next child.
Absolutely. I can't agree with Cindy more. And a lot of it, I think, too, is that persistence and really going to them multiple times. And a lot of the
Hmm.
time, they will shut you down. They won't answer
Yeah.
the phone. They'll give you the runaround and they'll call this
Yeah.
person, call that person. And I know from experience, like my mom would actually physically go to the school. It's harder to ignore somebody if they're right in front of your face and waiting. And they can go to your teachers individually. You can go
Hmm.
to them individually and speak to each one of them and try to get them on your side. And
Yeah.
maybe there will be less cooperative teachers. Maybe there'll be more that will be willing to side with you and help you
Hmm.
to go against the school and just encourage them to do better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, a lot of the teachers, man, they want to do the right thing. I think most
Yes.
teachers, they have a heart of service. They care about their students. Most teachers, they want to do the right thing. Now, can we say the same thing about every business out there? No. But
Mhm.
teachers, man, let me tell you, those are warriors on the front lines right there, y'all, shaping the future. And most of them have hearts of gold. And I think if we're willing to work with them and meet with them and communicate with them, they're most of the time willing to do the same as well. And so I think making sure all the lines of communication are open, everyone is staying in touch with each other. And holding people accountable doesn't mean it has to be harsh. It doesn't mean that it has to be a negative thing, but just gentle reminders, just like with our children. Communication can be soft responses saying, hey, I noticed he didn't do so hot on his last test. Can you give me any ideas of what's going on? Why, is he getting all his notes? He's saying he's not, he's not getting all his notes kind of thing, checking in with them and not doing the whole he said, she said kind of thing, but just making
Mm.
sure you're getting all sides of the story. You're giving everyone the chance to say their piece, and keeping those lines of communication open is so key, not just between you and your child, but with all their educators as well, because
Mhm.
we all know our kids can say one thing
Oh, yeah.
and and it's like us blind people, we say in the community, like, always ask before you assume the wrong thing. And I think that this is another one of those situations where it can be applicable. Ask before we assume the wrong thing, and we don't want to just take one person's word for it. You want to make sure you're checking in with all parties and getting every perspective you can before you form a judgment and say, oh, this district just sucks. Like, my child's not learning anything. Well,
Mhm.
have you done your due diligence on your end as well, to make sure that the teachers, you know, understand there is a problem. Sometimes they may think that, oh, this student's just not turning in their work. Sometimes it
Yeah.
could be simple things like that that just fall through the cracks. And so it's a lot easier to address behavioral issues, academic issues, social issues, because the teachers see a lot of the stuff going on socially behind the scenes just as much as the academics. And so getting them on your side is sometimes just a huge kind of insider, if you will, point. Because I mean, there was a lot of times I could tell my parents were staying in touch with my teachers. because I declined going to a school for the blind because I didn't want to leave my friends. But they were noticing that my friends were changing as my boyfriends were changing. And so the teachers really kind of helped them understand, well, this circle is more of like the cheerleader side. And since she didn't make the cheerleading team, then she's now with and because we didn't talk, I did not have a good communication system set up with my parents. And there were consequences to that I paid dearly for, and I have regrets about that to this
Abs-
day. We've all, no parent is perfect. We're all going to mess up somewhere, just like our parents did with us. So I think communication, though, man, is just one of those things where you can't go wrong if you work it.
hmm And I agree with Cindy. Talk to your child. I mean, you know your child. It's gonna be a lot easier to know if they how they approach things and if they're telling you the truth. I mean, and then talk to the teachers. I'll talk to all the educators, and
Hmm.
have that communication on all sides. But at the same time, don't be afraid to push. I think that sometimes we feel a little bit like, okay, I'm giving them reminders, I'm giving them gentle reminders, but sometimes there's just some people that you really do have to just push
Yeah,
them to do
yeah,
something and to push them to move. Otherwise, nothing is going to get done. And
yeah.
it's kind of difficult to know when what approach works best with certain things, but sometimes just trial and error and just starting off with that softer, lighter communication. And if that
Hmm.
doesn't work, again, like just don't be afraid to push harder and to increase that your communication with whatever roadblock you have in the school district.
Right, right. Yeah, totally, totally agree. All right. Does anyone have any other questions? We'll give them a few minutes. Do you see anything else in the chat?
Let's see. I gotta get back there. The chat is one of the most difficult things
I
for me to
know.
keep up on
I
here.
hear you. I know. This is one of those things where I don't know. I love Aaliyah from A Billy Mama too. She always has, a sighted partner in crime sometimes
Mm.
with her to help with that. And I'm like, oh man, that's genius. Um,
Okay, here Julia Oliver says, "Hi to both of you. I'm a future parent. I'm just wondering what
Yay!
age your children became aware of your disabilities. I have CP and CVI.
Okay. CP is in cerebral palsy, and the CVI is that
CVI is
cortical visual
cortical
impairment.
visual impairment. Yeah,
Okay, just to
I
make
think
sure
so.
we're all clear on acronyms. There's so many of them, right?
Yeah.
Um, but okay, so I actually did a video on my channel of one of the very first conversations I had with my daughter, and I think she was like 3 or 4, when I first began to really start explaining things to her and just kind of introducing the basic concepts. And I need to start doing this with my son as well. He is 3. And so I started doing this, and I think really it honestly depends on each individual family
Mhm.
and how much they are picking up on. I think with CP, I'm not sure how severe your CP and such is, or how much sight loss, whatever, but sometimes it's more significant and it's much more obvious to them at a younger age than others. But in my video, in the very, very beginning, I talked about like one of the reasons why I did so starting at these younger ages, 3, 4, because she was starting to say, well, mommy has bad eyes. And I just, y'all, it didn't sit well in my heart. I'm like, you know what? Mommy's eyes aren't bad. I mean, like, they're not, it sounded so negative, and I didn't want her that to perpetuate and become to reinforce that attitude of it being a negative thing. You know what?
Mhm.
Mommy's eyes just don't see well. I just experience things a little differently than you do. And no, I don't see that what's across the room. It's because my eyes don't work as well. I do things differently. And so I had this conversation with her, and I, spoke, about, people who are in wheelchairs or people who may be missing like an arm or a leg, and I'm like, it doesn't mean that that leg is bad. It doesn't mean that their body is bad. It doesn't, it just means that they're different and that they work that one leg is working more and harder than the other one, and kind of thing. And
Mhm.
I was trying to paint it in a way that doesn't have that, that negative connotation that a lot of us grew up with. And this kind of harkens back. I don't know if people are familiar with the medical model of disability versus the social model of disability. Those and the baby boomer generations and the older generations grew up with this medical model of disability where it is it is up for us to fix our disability, and if we struggle in society, if we struggle out in public, it's something because it's something that needs to be fixed for us to function. Whereas the social model it creates this negative connotation around disability. It kind of fosters this shame, this different, this can't do kind of negative approach. And so I really wanted to nip that in the bud. I wanted her to first feel confident in the communications. I wanted to correct her and help her understand that it's not a negative thing. And so I wanted to use the appropriate communication and language that I was comfortable with. And everyone has different comfort levels. So I would first encourage every parent to figure out, okay, what language do you want to model for them? Because that's the language that they're also going to be using later down the road to explain to their friends. So how do you want them to explain your disability to your friends? What language do you want them to, do you want them to express it with neutrality, normal is normalized, it's nothing but a thing, or do you want there to be these negative undertones? I mean, think about what language you want, that and that be the language that you use from day one. And so I
Mm.
want my daughter to tell her kids, like, yeah, my mom is blind, her eyes don't work well, she can't see. And it be just factual. There's nothing negative about it. There's nothing, you know um I don't want her to be, I don't want to model shame to her, and I don't want her to adopt that attitude either, because that's also going to be then what she perpetuates to all those that she interacts with. So I don't know, Carrie, what are your thoughts?
I think we have a little bit of a different dynamic in my family since both me and my husband are visually impaired, and Pablo is
Right.
totally blind. And I think, honestly, with little Pablo, since he was even able to just have a conversation, probably around 2.5, or probably, I think it was probably before 3. He
Mm-hmm.
had to understand that, his dad could not see. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
he would make something and he would expect dad to look at it like mommy does.
Right.
And the thing is, he can't. Yeah, he could pretend, but and say, that that's really good, whatever. But at the same time, we didn't really want to just pretend. We wanted to just explain to him that, it's this is how it is. This is what the reality is, and so that he would understand that, Pablo cannot see things, and he's going to have to do things differently. And that's the thing, right? When you're blind, yes, you can't see. Yes, you might not be able to have good vision, or you might not see things very well, but you people can still do it, just in a different way. So that's what I always explained to him since he was little. But one interesting
Mm-hmm.
thing is, because right now, what was it, like about a year ago, we moved into with my parents, because a lot of other family stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
it was so interesting because, he lived with me and Pablo for so long. And I mean, he would see my mom and other people, of course, but until like every day, my mom would be across the room and telling him, "Oh, stop doing that," or "Get down from there." Like all the way across the room. Like when he first started hearing her and like responding and noticing that she would do that, he would like my mom would explain to me that he would look at in her direction and be
Mm-hmm.
so confused because I mean, I wouldn't be able
Oh.
to usually do that. I would do that from much closer. And so
Mm-hmm.
he didn't, I don't think that he really understood that even I couldn't see well and what it was like or what it is like to for somebody who is sighted who can see across the room, and it's just something that he's still learning.
Yeah.
Because,
That's
he is
hard.
visually impaired, and so
Right.
when his cousins who have 20/20 vision, Nathan and Aoi, they'll say, "Oh, I see something really, really far away. Oh, look at that." And then like little Pablo will be like, "Oh, I see it too," even though
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
definitely can't possibly see it. And so I think that it's something that especially when they are blind or visually impaired, it's harder to understand the difference and
Yeah.
what it is like to have that vision as opposed
Yeah.
to what he can see.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess I'm still in the process of of that.
Yeah, I think that's it's so interesting to hear your perspective. It's like so many of us parents are like, okay, how do we explain our disabilities to them? But then what if, like in your situation, little Pablo, he too is disabled, and so he's trying to understand that and how it fits in with the whole world experience, and learning those words and learning those perspectives and how he feels about it and the language he wants to use and the family dynamics wants to use. I mean, it's something that I think it's not going to occur with one conversation. It's not going to occur overnight. I think this is one of those journeys, just like acceptance and just like learning all the different ways we adapt. We also have to learn all the different languages it takes to communicate those differences to other people and to figure out how we feel about it and how we want to explain it and how we want to communicate it um, to others so that they understand, because it's how we communicate our disability to our kids is going to be completely different how they communicate their disability to their friends. Does that make sense? Like, it's just every dynamic is so different on how you approach communicating disability, whether it's an adult to a child, or whether it's a child with their peers, and or a child back to their parent. Does that make sense, or am I just so sleep deprived right now because my kids have kept me up all night that I'm like not making sense at all?
No, I can
But
definitely agree. I mean, I grew up with my dad who is totally blind as well, and honestly, looking back at it, my parents weren't very open about it. They were
mine
very
weren't either.
reserved, closed off about
Yes.
like his blindness,
Hmm.
and in a lot of ways.
And I think
So
that again reflects
exactly,
their generation, where the
and
culture was
mhm.
with how they approached disability, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, before ADA came out. That generation, disability was not something you talked about.
And so, I mean, when I went to
Excuse me.
school, honestly, I reflected that in a lot of different ways, and I didn't know how. Are you okay over there?
Sorry, yeah.
It's okay.
Allergies.
Oh
They
yeah,
always get to me at
they're
night.
horrible right now. But
In the
I mean,
South, oh my God, yeah.
I really kind of emulated my dad and my parents in a lot of ways and how they approached being blind or visually impaired.
Hmm.
and that's how I handled it in school. And it wasn't until later as an adult that I I, I guess I came to terms with both what I cannot do and what I
Mm-hmm.
can't do, and then I have to do things in a different way. And for children, they just do, I think, really need to learn. And but if we can give them that confidence to talk about it openly, I think
Yeah,
it gives them a head start.
I agree.
So
So, some of the questions in the chat, I saw someone was asking about cooking with
yeah.
their kids. Just to back up, oh my gosh, there's a lot there. And Carrie, I know you've had a few videos just talking about some of the things that you've done in the kitchen.
Oh
That's
no.
like a whole 2 hour long stream in and
Okay.
of itself.
Yeah,
But I think we both
definitely.
have a few little videos that we've touched on
Mhm.
how we've approached both cooking with our kids. But it's a big one. I don't
Um,
know. What do you think?
it's I am not a cook. I mean, I cook. I
I'm not
definitely
either. Yeah, me too.
I definitely
Yeah.
cook. I cook for my family, but I would not say that I'm like, what's her
We're
name?
certainly not going to be going out on Master Chef and speaking with Gordon Ramsay anytime soon.
I do know that there's, like, Chris from Line Grilling, he does mostly grilling,
Yes.
but he also does
Yes. I
cooking
just
videos, and
became
then
familiar with
there's
his channel. Yes.
what's her name?
I know.
My
I think
mama's
Cindy. Oh,
my hold on,
My Blind Mama's Messy Kitchen.
there you
Got it,
go.
girl. Yes. My Blind Mama's Messy Kitchen. They are great channels, yes, that you can check out. And
Mhm.
there are, yeah, YouTube channels of blind people cooking and definitely hit them up. I think that a lot of most of their approaches teaching us and ways that we cook and how they do it blind. So if you're specifically wanting to know how we get our children involved, that's something that I'm sure both Carrie and I can certainly do another stream about or post some videos on to help the community if they're wanting to do those tasks, not just for themselves and their family, but getting their kids involved in that process with them safely. That's totally, if I'm not sure if that's the question that you had, and two, is your child also visually impaired or no?
It
What?
looks like they are. It's talking
Okay.
specifically about blind kids, and I
Okay.
would start off with something super easy and like
Yes.
as with every we don't know what age they are either, so it's just really also depends as well.
I
But I would start off
Yeah.
with something easy. Even I mean, I don't know where they are, so can they even use the microwave? Can they recognize
Mm-hmm.
different products in the fridge? Like, I think it starts off with the simple foundations before you even
Mm-hmm.
start cooking.
Yeah. Sometimes too, I think getting them used to how things feel, because I don't know about you, Carrie, but the utensils that I use, I go by the vibrations that I feel through the utensil. So like when I'm stirring a pot of pasta, if I can tell by how the pasta feels when I'm stirring it, if it's done or not. I don't even have to touch the pasta because I can feel just by the consistency of the pasta and how
Mhm.
it is interacting with my utensil if it's done or not. And so sometimes I think getting them used to tuning into their senses, like for example, what it feels like to use like a butter knife, a case knife, to
Mhm.
spread peanut butter over a slice of bread. And it doesn't matter if it's like the most chunky, like thick layer ever, but just like they're gonna make a mess, right? If they're like 3, 4 years old and there's peanut butter everywhere, I mean, that's how they learn. And my kids, they want to crack an egg open. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God,
Oh, no.
like, okay,
Yes.
egg is not one of those things you want to play around with, but hey, it's an important lesson. And so sometimes just knowing there's going to be a mess, And a mess
Yes.
is okay.
It's okay. Like, I mean, this
Yes,
is one of the things that I'm like, "No,
just
please,"
diving
but at the
in.
same
Yeah,
time, that's how they learn, through the mess.
exactly. Is exactly. And so,
And
starting
M says that
small.
they are 6 years old, their child is 6 years old
Okay.
right now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
A 6-year-old should totally be able to make their own peanut butter and jelly. Now, here are some other things too. One of the things, so my daughter is 5. She likes cereal. She can't make her own bowl of cereal yet, but here is what I'm going to try to start doing so that someday she can. Go ahead and pre-portion out, the cereal, and then get some, like, you can get on Amazon and get the disposable, like, sippy cups that they use to that they sell on Amazon, that they're like BPA free plastic. They're reusable, but they're also supposed to be disposable or something. I don't know. I'll try to put a link down below if I can remember to come back to the video. But I wanted to just go ahead, portion out my milk and portion out the cereal so that all she had to do was is dump and you're ready.
Mhm.
And
It
I
starts with that, like, something simple,
yeah.
even if, it's really simple and you have to do a lot of prep work, 'cause sometimes
Mhm.
that can be the first step
Yeah.
into them getting into it.
Yeah. Yeah, and so breaking it down so that you can make it as successful an experience for them as possible, because, if it's gonna be too frustrating, if they're gonna see you getting upset and frustrated over the mess, or, irritated because you're gonna be cleaning all that up later, that they're gonna feel that, and it's gonna transfer over as a negative experience, and so they're not gonna be, 2, 3 years from now, as motivated to help you out in the kitchen and cook a meal for the family. And you like, little seeds, people. I'm praying that those seeds grow in the future, because I definitely want my daughter to help me out in the kitchen in the future. So making it and keeping it is positive. Don't be afraid of the messes. Start out small. Make it
Yes.
as easy for them as possible so that they have those successful positive moments to motivate you through. But yeah, if you want some more recipe ideas, ways to start small, we can definitely help you out with that later. Is there anything else? Let's see, what else, Carrie? Someone I saw quite another question later on, and y'all, I'm so sorry if we don't get to some of y'all's your questions. Just keep asking, and I promise one of us will see it.
Yeah, repeat it again if you
Yeah, if you put a Q, guys, in front of your question, that will also help us identify it as something specifically you want us to address. Let's see. Okay, so just under the cooking one,
How
do
do
you?
you teach your children to advocate? Oh, wait, who's this
That's it.
first? Julia. How do you
I saw
teach
that.
your children to advocate for themselves in moments where you could not?
I think we kind of touched on that one
Yeah,
a
I think
little
so
bit
too.
earlier. So, Julia, if you want to rewind back or watch the replay, we had a bit of discussion about that earlier, but quick recap on advocating. Sometimes it starts with you modeling it and them learning what the appropriate language is, what the appropriate way is to address those moments, and the passion that it takes, where the boundaries are of being appropriate versus inappropriate and too aggressive, that kind of thing. Some of that stuff they learn from you, and in seeing you step up to the plate. So if not, then, like Carrie was talking about earlier, just having that communication with them and talking them through it between the two of you. Carrie, do you
Mhm.
want to add any to that recap?
Yeah, so I mean, talking about what could happen and just going through what they could do, just different scenarios um, of what people could say or not help them with or do, and how they can respond. Like, it's a little bit like role playing that you can do as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. But
Mhm.
ultimately, guys, I think when it comes to advocacy, that's one of those really difficult ones that unfortunately comes with experience, and you get better at with practice and with confidence and with a higher level of self-esteem. Some kids, especially in puberty ages, they're already full of so much self-doubt. They're still
Mm.
searching for their
Mhm.
identity. They're still doing a lot of soul searching and discovery that they don't have quite enough, of a foundation there to stand up for themselves confidently. And so advocacy is sometimes just one of those things where it comes with age, it comes with time, and it comes with experience, fighting that fight over and over and over and over. And so there were times, I was 14, 15, 16, and my parents were still having to go to the bat for me, because I just was not willing to speak up because I didn't want to shake the tree. I was that child in the classroom that I would rather be silent and just do what it took to get through the class than to separate myself from the pack, if you will, to make my differences even more noticeable. So I didn't want to go to the teacher and say, hey, I really need this accommodation. I wouldn't speak up for myself because of that peer issue that I had. And that's a whole other, for me, Carrie, that's kind of like a whole nother can of worms in acceptance that I also had to learn. But advocacy is just one of those things for me. It took finding myself, and it took practice
Mhm.
and self
And
confidence to get better
And
at.
again, I think that I also got a lot of encouragement when I did go to like other meetings with other people who are blind and visually impaired. So
Yeah.
I'm sure in each state they should have some kind of get together with other blind children and other, especially in middle school and high school is that's such a difficult time in life for even somebody without a disability. But if you can get together and have those meetings, like I personally, I was in the NFB leadership lead program, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
leadership, education, advocacy, and determination.
Mm-hmm.
And just seeing other people and their example
Mm-hmm.
encouraged me to do the same because I'm like, "Oh, okay, so it's not just me. I'm not alone in this and they were able to do this. Okay, maybe I can scrounge up enough courage to be able to actually do that and learn from what their struggle and what they had to do
Yeah.
and implement that into my own life."
Yeah. Totally. Totally. Okay. Is there anything else? Let's see. It's easier to advocate about something that. Do you see where I'm at? Let's see, who is this? Near here. I'm gonna have to turn my voiceover
Um,
on. My eyes are too
where
tired
are
tonight,
you?
guys. I was telling Carrie earlier tonight that we went to the zoo earlier, and while that's great and all, it's one of those things where like going outside,
Oh,
I did a video on like eye stress and eye strain equals eye fatigue. And for me, going to the zoo and things like that means my eyes are shot in the evening and I just don't see. So I'm going to turn voiceover on.
okay, I can read it.
Okay,
Well, do you want to read it or you want me to read it?
you go for it.
Okay. It's easier to advocate about something. And maybe you should have had voiceover do it.
No,
It's
you're
easier
fine.
to advocate about something that the child feels valuable to them than something they have no passion
Mm,
in advocating for, and what is true for anyone. And that is true for everyone.
preach,
Yes,
preach.
that is
Yeah,
so true.
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, a part of advocacy too, I think, is just having that like that fire under your butt, having that knowing your worth and your value and what it's going to take for you to achieve what you want in life. And sometimes with kids, they are so wrapped up in developing in other areas, like just developing friendships. What does she think about me? What does he think about me? And every week is different. Their like world is consumed by so many other things that advocating for their needs in the areas that we think's important is so not something that they're passionate about. And so you're totally right. How can they really be, you know, a present a significant argument, or how can they be passionate about advocating for their needs and what their rights are, if it's something it's not on the radar yet, it's not something that they value yet. Totally good point.
Y yes, yeah.
11:28 p.m.
Let's
9 tab.
see.
Julie Oliver, I believe it's important to let kids know that they do have a voice and that decisions are important, as is sitting back and not making a decision or not advocating. Actions available.
Yes. So did you hear that? I don't know if y'all can hear my voiceover or not.
Yes, we can hear it. Mhm.
Okay. So, it's important letting kids know that they have a voice. I think that it hits on something. Talk about independence, man. If if there's anything I want my children at 3 and 5 to learn is the power of their voice and the power of their words. I think that can go so far in their independence in life and standing up for themselves and advocating and knowing that you do have a voice. And if you choose
Mhm.
not to use it, then that is on you, and the consequences are
Mm,
on you. But learning to use your voice, it is a powerful tool that it can get you everything in life, or it can get you nothing in life.
absolutely. I mean, that's something that I'm struggling with right now, actually, with little Pablo. He's 4, which is completely understandable that he
Hmm.
kind of just breaks down and cries and,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm really trying to encourage him to, instead of crying, instead of, like, jumping off the wall, like, stop, breathe, and try to get your point across with your words. That's how
Yes.
you're going to get what you want. Like, nobody's going to know why you're crying, and I can't understand you when when you're, like, crying and you're weeping and you're doing all these things. So calm down and
Hmm.
use your words. And I mean, in the beginning, of course, you're gonna have to help them
Hmm.
find the words to say. And then from there, they as time goes on and after a while, um, they're going to start picking up on that and eventually have the words to say to advocate, even to you, for what
Right,
they want, to you as a parent.
right. Yeah, my son, he's 3, and that's something we have to tell him every day, because at this age, it is
Yes.
part of their development to be very reactionary. That
Yes.
is all they know is how to react. They don't have the vocabulary yet to express their feelings. They don't have the
Mhm.
know-how to step back,
They
take a
don't even
deep
know what their
breath.
feelings are at this point.
Exactly. I think, so whether they're 3, whether they're 12, whether they're 48, I mean, I think as parents, it's our job to remind ourselves, okay, where are they developmentally? Where are their verbal skills, their emotional, self-soothing skills? Where are where is their level of communication? Keeping that in mind, of what expressing what the expectation is. So right now, yeah, with my son, I'm like, hey, dude, stop, react, calm down, take a deep breath. Let's use your words, because you whining and pointing and grunting does not tell mommy anything. And so it really starts young, and but it's something that I think is a continuous battle throughout life, and we all need those reminders. I mean, good Lord, even in my own marriage, y'all, my husband still has to remind me that, hey, you didn't, you got to tell me when you can't see things. Like, I can't, I don't, I don't know all this stuff just automatically. And I mean, it's like, we've been together 15 years or more. And he still doesn't understand sometimes. He can't anticipate everything. And so we all need gentle reminders to keep on point with our communication. And it's just one of those things where, um, practice makes perfect in that you get confidence, but you still have to work at it. It still takes effort to keep on your game with communication. And when it comes to being reactionary, I tell this, I speak about this in acceptance a lot with people that having 5 minutes of an emotional reaction or 10, or I think I said this in the last stream, like it doesn't matter if you're down and defeated for a full day or more, like take the time that you need, but eventually you have to take the next step. And the next step is figuring out, okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to say? What do I need to communicate? And whom do I need to communicate that to move forward from the situation or from whatever point you're at in life? And I think that kind of approach is so true in finding our feet in independence and acceptance or what have you. It doesn't matter what age you are, and it doesn't matter what part of your journey you're at. It's okay to feel those feelings. It's okay to have those emotions, but at some point, it's important to learn what it takes to move to the next step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
11:48 p.m. Nimer Jaffer. It's easier to advocate about something that the child feels valuable to them
Oh,
than
yeah,
something.
we read that
11:35
one.
p.m. MM. 6 years old.
Okay,
Actions
she
available.
said 6.
11:35 p.m. MM. Great ideas. Thanks.
Cool.
11:46 p.m. MM. Your kitchen tips video was so helpful.
Oh,
Page
good.
5 of 5.
Yay.
11:41 p.m. Paul's blind soup for the soul. Take care, Cindy. Bye, Carrie. Have a good one,
Hey,
everyone.
Paul.
Actions
I'm
available.
sure he's
Paul.
probably out by now, but
Yeah,
Poe's
he
blind
says
soup for the
goodbye.
soul. Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. So if that's
Voice to
no
clock.
more questions, Carrie, do you have any final thoughts for this evening?
I just want to reemphasize the fact that I think communication is so important, but also just building that trust and that relationship with your
Mm,
child is really important. And from that trust and that love, and even when they are frustrating and they're not following you, that they know that you love them unconditionally, whatever happens. I think
yeah.
that's something that will definitely help them
Mm-hmm.
and definitely, give them a step in the right direction
Mm-hmm.
in life.
I totally agree. Yeah, we haven't really touched too much on fostering that trust and the love and the bond, knowing that it's okay if they
Hmm.
mess up, that you're still going to be there to help and support and love them. And
Yes, and I think
sometimes,
that I'm sorry. I think
go
that
ahead.
also with that knowledge that you trust them and they trust you and they have confidence in that, that's going to make them
Mm,
more independent.
right, right, exactly. Yeah, they're gonna know that someone's got their back, no matter what. And I think that that's the beautiful thing that we all want. Between ourselves and our children. Um, and so all kinds of beautiful things I think can come from, when we really have a nurturing, loving, and trusting thing. And the road to challenging that runs both ways. So just as much as we get irritated as at our children for pushing the boundaries, for being rebellious, for saying, no, no, mommy, I am not going to do that. We definitely test that relationship too when we don't do our best to make things creative and fun and do our best to hold our own tempers back and to hold our own frustrations back so that we're not transferring that over to them. And so I feel like everything we've touched on, Carrie, tonight is so golden. I hope a lot of parents get a lot of value out of tonight's discussion because, man, if only I knew half of this stuff before, I really got into the big parenting role, I just would have felt so much more prepared.
Mm,
Because I had
yeah.
to
And
discover a lot of this stuff on on my own,
And
and
I
a lot
think
of
that's
parents
what a lot
do.
of
Yeah.
first-time parents do. But
Yeah.
I would encourage other people to also to find a community where there are other parents, and just sometimes more heads are better than one. And
Yeah.
again, everybody's going to have their own approach and their own opinions, but at the
Hmm.
same time, you can learn a lot from different parents. And even with
Right.
them disagreeing, you can see their reasoning and why they say this or
Yes.
they say that, and go with what you feel comfortable with.
Right. Yeah. Everyone has their own family dynamics, their own individual comfort levels, and their own love languages that they use within their family dynamics. And some parents are more strict than others. Some people show love differently than others. I mean, you're so right. You guys do, like we all say, you do you. And but
Mhm.
hopefully the things that we've said and gone over tonight, some of the ideas will inspire you to hopefully find what works for you and your family. If you guys have any other questions, guys, please put them in the comment section after the stream, and myself or Carrie, will do our best to respond, and hopefully we'll put out some more content on kitchen videos and
I'll leave that up to you,
advocacy.
Cindy.
I am not a cook, but I will do my best to at least share what I do know. And yeah, hopefully, guys,
But
I
if anybody does have any questions, and you can definitely leave a comment. But if
yes,
for some reason we don't see it or anything, send us a
mhm,
DM, send us a
right.
message on Instagram or on Facebook or any of our social media. And that way we can get that in our inbox directly, because at least, especially for the YouTube side for this video, I won't be getting the notifications. So just
Yep,
send your questions through a message, and I'll definitely get back to you guys.
sounds good. All right, you guys. Well, that is it for us. Thank y'all so much for watching, and we will catch y'all in the next video.
Thanks, everyone, and thanks, Cindy, for having me.
Yeah, it was awesome. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.